Hello, and welcome to an intro to Anthro with two humans. I'm human number one, John McCray.
And I'm human number two, John Lehr.
And this is the podcast where we reassess what it means to be human. And the title of today's episode is Smell You Later, A Brief but Smelly History of Humanity. And, John...
This is a good, I mean, it's 1/5 of the way we interact with the world.
Exactly.
The olfactory, the old olfactory.
The other thing that I found interesting about that is, once again, you sent me this article, and it's an article by Nicole Rodriguez entitled "Lab-Grown Nose Gives a Whiff of How Ancient Humans Used to Smell."
Weird.
So once again, you've sent me an article about ancient hominids.
I know. I'm sorry. I know anthropology covers a wide swath of what humanity is, but I'm so into early man. It just, I don't know why.
I was thinking we need to pitch a reboot of I Love Lucy where you play Ricky Ricardo and your wife, instead of being like a vivacious redhead, is an Australopithecus afarensis. And you still live in New York, you still run a club, but boy does she get you into trouble when she comes down to the club.
Lucy. And she's only 3 feet high, right?
Right. With a brain about the size of an apricot. So, but she comes down and she attacks the club of, all the patrons. Or I don't know.
But a shock of red hair on it. Oh, God.
Let's work on that. Let's put up the storyboard. Right.
That's a good idea. We'll put that in there.
Okay, but I have to say, this article had me from the get-go because, as you know, and maybe you knew this when you sent it to me, it checks all my boxes. Has a laboratory. It has to do with ancient humans, and it has to do with smell. It's like, how could you not love this one? And it reminded me of, remember Woody Allen's Sleeper?
Oh,
when of
course, the nose.
The nose.
You're talking about the nose.
They were trying to save the leader's nose, So.
Yeah, so they could clone him.
And it also sounds like a 1950s sci-fi movie. Like, what has man done? They're creating a nose in a laboratory, playing God. What happens if this nose gets loose?
You add that nose to the AI and forget about it.
That's all it needs to take over. It's just to smell us. But before we discuss what exactly this lab-grown nose showed, I think we need to have a little background on how the olfactory system works.
Agreed. We can't just jump right in. No, that's not the way we work on an intro to anthropology. We introduce you. Everybody, let's just move in slow.
We don't want anybody getting panicked when we talk about this.
Don't jump off the high dive first thing. The shock of the water temperature, just, it's too much. Let's start in the baby end. And slowly move in.
Right, exactly. So in the upper part of our noses, there are receptor cells that are connected to the olfactory nerve, aka cranial nerve 1. And these receptors are neurons or nerve cells, and we have millions of them, but we only have about 400 different types of these cells.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But combinations smell different things? Is that how it works?
Exactly. Between those 400, we can get different types of smells that we have.
Wow.
So millions of different cells, but only about 400 different types. And what happens is the substances that smell or give off an odor release particles into the air. And when those particles or molecules that are in the air enter our noses, the olfactory receptors, those neurons, bind to specific molecules.
Okay.
And when a molecule binds to an olfactory receptor, it activates these receptor cells, which then send an electrical pulse to the brain via the olfactory bulb. which is like the olfactory bulb are two little blueberry-shaped extensions of your brain, where the brain senses smell and interprets what you're actually smelling.
Jesus. So what you're telling me, this is shocking, because what you're telling me is that there's no such thing as smell. There's just molecules floating in the air, and we interface with those molecules vis-a-vis smell.
Right.
What we call smell. But there's no quality in and of itself that's smell. It's just how we interact with those molecules. Maybe we're not smelling the same thing. When you're smelling jasmine and I'm smelling jasmine, we both agree that it's jasmine, but we may not be experiencing the smell in the same way.
Right. It all depends upon our neurons, our olfactory receptors.
Damn.
So, and it's basically
real. Is anything real? Are we in a simulation?
I don't know. I don't know anymore.
It's so bizarre.
Yeah.
Okay. I understand. I'm
just let the AI take care of it. Just sit back and just
enjoy the ride. Okay. I hear
it's like a movie now. It's like a movie.
But I can tell you right now, those two little bulbs that you're talking about, those probably look gross, I bet. They're like little
they're like little snail. They're like two little blueberry bulbs sticking out of your brain towards your nose.
Jesus. Okay.
But it's those, like you were saying, it's those electrical impulses from the olfactory receptors to our brain that determines what we think is the smell. There's no objective smell out there, like you said.
The molecules somehow turn into electricity, and the electricity tells us what the thing smells like.
Exactly.
Damn.
Wow.
God, it's weird.
And so there are two paths for these molecules to reach the olfactory bulb or the olfactory nerve. One is to come in through our nose and hit those, and the other is when we're eating something. And they work their way up the back of our throat as the food dissolves. It works its way up the back of our throat and then reaches the olfactory.
You don't need to tell me that one. Anytime you get some vinegar going, you get that weird bland thing going.
And that's how it's smell, or what we consider smell, is a big part of taste. And so that's why it's actually those molecules now, instead of coming in through our nose, are working their way up through the back of our throat.
Right. If you close your nose off and eat a pear and somebody tells you it's an apple, you wouldn't know.
Right. Okay. So a few more interesting points about this. The olfactory nerve is the shortest sensory nerve that we have. And the distance between the olfactory nerve and your brain is very small. So it's almost like you have, through your nose, you have an almost direct connection to the outside world and your brain.
So the nose is the gateway to consciousness. It's the leader. It runs point. It runs point.
Yeah, wow. Which is amazing. I mean, it's almost like an open window into your brain.
That's so amazing.
Yeah, it's the hotline. You know what I mean? It's like the direct in the office. It doesn't even have to go through the switchboard. It's just directly over to the director's office, Amazing.
It's right in there.
And this is why you have such an instantaneous response when you smell something. You almost are responding before you even know what's happening.
Yes.
Also, the olfactory nerve connects to the limbic system, which is the reptilian brain.
Oh, Jesus.
Which is I know you love the reptilian brain.
I do. It runs my show. I am somehow it's got a lot of power over me.
Inside your consciousness is laying on a rock somewhere out in the desert. And then,
exactly.
And whatever happens, it scurries away. Tries to find
but if a fly comes by, its tongue goes out and grabs it.
And as we know, the limbic system controls emotion. And in her book, The Sin of Desire, it sounds like a dirty book, but it's not. It's actually
okay. Yeah, sure. You had to read it for the podcast.
Yeah.
All right. I hear you.
I go in, lock the door, out in the garage, out in my man cave. I'd go. Don't come in here. But Rachel Hertz says that we could say, quote, the ability to experience and express emotion grew directly out of our brain's ability to process smell.
What?
Yeah.
Wait. Okay. So she's saying that smell it created emotion or yeah.
It grew out of it because that was like when our ancestors would smell, you know, you use your smell to detect fear. Maybe you detect, you know, if you were close to someone that was part of your group or, you know, just if you wanted to feel at ease, it was all through smell. And so she's saying just because it's connected into the limbic system, it, you know, there are millions of years of evolution between that, but it led to our emotions.
Wow. Smell, which doesn't really exist. It's just these weird molecules that cause an electrical impulse. Makes us it created our emotions.
Yeah. Or led to our emotions.
Led to them. Yeah, led to them. Sorry. So over time, the hominids that had that, you know, through whatever had connections to the limbic system that proved more valuable over time. That somehow, Jesus, okay, that's weird.
Yeah,
but it makes sense. And I know you're probably going to get into this, but you know, people buy smelling things to make smells, to trigger smells, because it gets different feelings and emotions out, and you know, and you can buy smelloramas,
the essential oils or whatever you want to buy. But this is also why smells trigger such emotional responses, which is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, you know, you can buy lavender, for example, or jasmine to make you feel more relaxed. And probably the most famous smell description and emotion is from Marcel Proust.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
No, I thought you were going to say John Waters' Polyester or something.
Oh, God, what a great movie.
With the smellorama, the smelling card removed.
Yeah, the little scratch and sniff. Sorry.
No, but it's from Proust, where everyone always says, well, you know, they always talk about, well, in that scene where with the Madeleine, the little cake, he dips it, you know, on a spoon. There's some tea on it, and then that takes him back to his childhood, and he has all these memories.
And that's the whole remembrance. That kicks off. Is that what kicks off the whole thing? All of his books.
It's one of the big parts of it. To me, I got hooked on Proust.
Yes, I know.
College, I couldn't get out like a sentence without talking about Proust. But to me, there's another scene where he goes to see his Aunt Leonie, and the narrator describes it. He goes into it. She's an old woman. She's a shut-in, but he describes her house in this small village in France. And he says, you know, you could smell the musty furniture and you smell the fireplace and it's kind of damp in there, but the sun's coming through and the whole atmosphere begins to rise and smell like baking bread. So to me, that hooked me at that point with Proust. I was like, I know that smell. I've been in a lot of old farmhouses in Kansas where that smell is in there. But and
it makes me remember, you know, I know the smell of the house I grew up in. You know, I know that smell.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting.
And you can there's still sometimes you'll be walking in a certain place and you'll smell something similar to that house that you grew up in, and it triggers and you're back there. So that's
or it's a deja vu where you're sort of thing where you're like, what is I know that smell. I know that smell.
Yeah.
And then you put it together.
That's what the Madeleine scene is referring to, is that idea that you'll hit these things that just take you back suddenly to your memory.
That's amazing.
So back to the article you sent me. So with this lab-grown nose,
you quote Proust, and I just send you an Apple News link.
What? It seems to work, I guess. It's all the same, really. We're all just molecules.
Are we? Are we even that? I don't even know anything now. Touch is just what I mean. I suppose we'll get to that, but it's all electrical impulses too.
Yeah,
I mean, this is crazyville.
What
I don't know who the hell I am?
We're all just molecules in some other big being's nose, you know. So in this study, what the researchers at Duke University and Paris-Saclay University did was they took DNA from Neanderthals and Denisovans, who we've discussed before.
Mm-hmm. Please see our previous EPs if you need to know those.
Right. And the researchers used that DNA to create 30 odor receptors in the lab.
But how, what is it like? I mean, what are they cloning? Like, what are they doing?
I think this one, they had just taken the DNA sequence.
Right.
It wasn't a physical nose in there, but they took the DNA sequence as, I guess, electronic is the way you would do it, or some electrical or computer receptor recreation of it. I don't think there was an actual nose sitting in a petri dish.
God damn it.
I hate to break. I know it's that's what you want.
I do want that. It's like gene splicing, kind of. Whatever. Yeah. Okay. So they figured it out. They unzipped it. They figured it out, and they made it
for each of them. For a Neanderthal, they created 30 odor receptors, and for a Denisovan, they created about 30 odor receptors. And probably, I mean, obviously, we would have more odor receptors than that. But what they wanted to do is see how these, prehistoric hominins, how they interpreted smell, how it compared to modern human smell.
Okay.
And what they found is that Neanderthals had smell very similar to ours, but it was less sensitive than ours.
I wonder and so that affected their emotions somehow too, I guess.
Probably.
So they would affect their personality. Neanderthals wouldn't give a hell about it. Just, you know what? Whatever. Come on over here. Get in my cave. Yeah. Join me.
You know what's interesting, though, is that they weren't sensitive or as sensitive to the smell of sweat and urine like we are, which is probably good.
Yeah. Do you think that's what made us destroy them, or that's why we are the winners?
I don't know. I think
we could smell sweat and urine.
It was probably good if you're living in a cave with about 30 other people.
I'd rather be the Neanderthal. They must have been mellow. You know what I mean? They were like the hippies of the early man.
They also weren't as sensitive to flower or floral smells and spicy smells.
That's like me. I don't have a very good sense of smell. Do you know that? I don't know if you ever told you that. Yeah, I don't know. I attribute it to my cocaine abuse in my 20s. Yeah. You know, I've been sober a long time, and so maybe that's it. But yeah, I need things to be super spicy for me to kind of really taste something. Isn't that weird? Really? I mean, smell something. Yeah, and taste it and enjoy it.
When you were younger, before the cocaine use, did you feel like you could smell things then?
I didn't know.
Have a memory of...
It never came up. Back then that I never realized it. But later in life, being around my family, they're like, "What? You can't taste it?" I'd be like, "I don't know."
Yeah, you were a cook as well. Did that affect how you cooked?
No, it didn't. Everybody, let me tell you something about the kitchen of a restaurant. I don't know. I know I don't need to tell you, but nobody's thinking about how good the food is back there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And here's one thing that, a total aside, don't ever, and back me up on this if you agree.
Yeah.
Send your food back in a way that makes the waiter upset.
Yeah.
If you upset your waiter and you send your food back, you're eating spit. I've never done it, but boy, have I seen it.
Yeah.
Why would you ever piss off the person who's bringing your food to you? Why would you do that?
Yeah. Tell that chef that this is,
This is unedible.
Yeah, I would get a doggy bag and leave immediately.
Yeah.
I would just like, whatever. I am not sending this back.
No, I never send anything back or complain because I've worked in a restaurant. The world would be a different place if everybody had to work in a restaurant, don't you think?
Yeah.
For a year?
I think there would be a lot more empathy. And I think there would be a lot more patience in the world. You know?
And everybody would tip 20%.
Yeah. So denosivans, on the other hand, were more sensitive to sulfurous smells and balsamic smells, which are like vanilla and chocolate. And denosivans, they found also their receptors were very sensitive to honey smells, which honey is a very energy-packed substance. And they think that denosivans probably were very good at finding honey, and honey was probably a big part of their diet.
So when you're if you're a Neanderthal and you've got your peanut butter, you go over to the denosivans. I forgot I don't know.
Denosivans. No, I'm there with you. Just please
denosivans. To get the honey. They're like Winnie the Pooh of early man.
Right. You could just look over there and see the dipping those furry fingers in that big crock of honey and like
getting stung all over, but not giving a goddamn. So you wait for the bees to go away, and then you come on over and get some for your Sammy.
Simpler times back then.
Yeah.
So what about us modern humans? And while most animals use smell to help them find food and mates and detect danger, usually modern humans use smell just to find food. But as our binocular vision and our color vision got better, we began to rely less on smell. In other words, we could find food with our eyes and by looking at the color. Like we could see berries and fruit and trees, and we didn't have to sniff it out so much. And so as that happened, for modern humans, the sense of smell began to decrease in importance.
Interesting.
And there's a couple reasons for that. One of the reasons is that a highly developed sense of smell takes up a lot of brain space. And then secondly, to have a highly developed sense of smell, you need to have a long snout to contain all of those receptors.
Yes, like my dog.
Right, like a dog.
Smell anything. Yeah.
Yeah. Or a bear.
Dogs can smell cancer or whatever. I mean, it's amazing.
But you see what happens. You have to have that long snout with all the receptors, and that gets in the way of the stereoscopic vision. So
people who had a mutation with a shorter snout tended to be able to see food and danger better. And so slowly over time, and we're talking a long time.
Yeah.
The snout, people with shorter snouts,
better vision,
longer,
shorter snouts began to become more advantageous to them. So our noses got smaller, our eyesight got better.
Fantastic.
There.
Yeah.
What
about pheromones? I'm sorry. What about pheromones? Is that smell? Like if
we'll get to that. Can we wait to get there?
Curious.
Because we'll kind of get to some more of that. But I think
all right.
we do have a segment that we'll talk about.
God
with
damn,
the
you're
pheromones.
good. You are really, really good.
I just know you, and I knew you were going to ask about pheromones. I hope have you bought them online or something? Are you wearing them now?
When am I not talking about pheromones? You know.
Me, it was Proust every other sentence. You as pheromone. Oh, I got some pheromones. Look what I got. I bought it from Mad Magazine. They were selling it in the back of it.
Put a little bit on between your thumb and your finger and snort it up. Trust me. You're going to love this.
Just an excuse to like uncontrollably go after people. So a couple things about smell. First off, probably the most underappreciated sense. Where a lot of people think it's the underappreciated.
ESP. There's that one.
Yeah. That's like 5A or 5 with a little 1 underneath. You actually have you consider 8 8 senses that people have.
Oh, I did. Oh, yeah, think of a number. Think of a number right now.
Okay.
Oh, you got one?
Yeah.
It's a 3.
Oh, it is. It was.
Yeah.
It was.
Told you.
Yeah.
Told you.
Jesus. Spooky, but all right. You proved it. During COVID, a lot of people lost their sense of smell.
Yeah.
As you know. And that kind of, people started thinking about as anosmia, which is the loss of smell, but it wasn't before COVID. People didn't pay much attention to other people that said they had lost smell.
Yeah.
And in fact, 1 in 20 Americans are supposed to have smell loss. So it's no laughing matter, but I mean, that's a
me.
lot.
Maybe that's me. I'm one of those people, you know?
And maybe they say that people who have lost their sense of smell experience personality changes.
What do you mean?
Well
what's that mean? Fuck me, fuck you.
Yeah, cut. We come back. We come back, and you and I are wearing different shirts. It's obviously weeks later. The weather outside has changed. I have a different haircut. Anyway. But they report personality changes as well as feeling depressed and disconnected from the environment.
Boy, that's me.
And unable to enjoy eating or sex.
No, that's not me. I like those things.
There's still a few receptors left in that old snout of yours.
It's like a Model T. We can crank it up, get it just enough.
There's just 2 receptors for food and sex. Food and sex. Just back and forth.
Hey, I'll use my binocular vision for the rest, okay? I'm fine.
It's like a 2-stroke engine. Just boom, 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 boom. Food sex, food sex.
It's like a mini bike.
Michael Hutchins from InXS, remember he had been punched and then he fell and had a brain injury. And they said that brain injury, he lost his sense of smell. And people that knew him said, you know, before the accident, or before, he wasn't an accident, it was an assault. Before the assault, he had been like a libertine. You know, he loved drink, he loved food, he loved sex, he loved all sensuality. And after he lost his sense of smell, they said his personality completely changed.
Wow. And maybe that led to his suicide, or?
Right, exactly. Because he became more depressed, sometimes aggressive with people. He couldn't enjoy sex anymore, food, which he used to love, gourmet food.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Wow.
Also, in the introduction to the book Aroma, of course, the cultural history of smell.
You're amazing.
Not the smelly history of smell, which is what we're doing. The authors say that smell is a social phenomenon invested with particular meanings and values by different cultures.
Okay, we're all, but doesn't that go for every sense, really? Like, my son was playing his band. He's a drummer. He's 14. He's really good. And he was playing with his friend, and they were screaming. I forgot, what do they call it? Emotional hardcore, emote hardcore, something like that. Where you scream, you like the just guttural screaming with it's hardcore. And people, it was at his school, and parents are like getting up and leaving.
Oh, no. Really?
The guy who was singing, his buddy Angus, was just. But I know this is not really what you're talking about, but to them that's music, and to others it's not. Yeah.
There's a subjectivity to it, I think. But I think there would also be, as far as smells go, a lot of what we consider to be good smells or bad smells were passed down to us from our parents or from our culture. Say, for example, like if you said, "Oh, a skunk smells bad," if you were taught from a young age that a skunk maybe smelled good,
right?
Then it would
associate it with a source of food or something. Yeah. You know, that's really interesting, and because I was never exposed to Eastern Indian food when I was growing up in Kansas. And so when I first smelled the spices, and I associated with, what is that? It doesn't, and it took me time to, and now I'm like, I love it.
Yeah.
But it took some time to relearn.
Because you had never been exposed to it. So, and also our reactions to smells have changed over time. As humans, our reaction to smells, because the world used to be a much smellier place.
What? Really?
I know it's smelly now, but it used to be a much smellier place.
Yeah, you're right. Those woolly mammoths, can you imagine? They get wet, right? Yeah. And then they walk around. Oh,
just like a wet dog smell.
Oh, but the size of a house.
You're just sitting in your cave full of urine and feces, and like, oh no, but that woolly mammoth is just too much.
Rotting.
Just too. I get that thing out of here. But in cities in the ancient world, you had smoke from fires. For example, everybody was using a fire to smoke, or using fires to cook. And heat their homes. You had rotting garbage out
everywhere
in the streets. Yeah.
Yep.
You had dead animals, dead humans in there.
Oh, yeah.
We also had sweat and urine, and then probably the most overwhelming smell in the ancient world would have been excrement.
Yes. Still is, right? I mean, that. Well, I guess maybe the death of a body is probably. I've never smelled one, but that's supposed to be like the smell of all smells. Like people can't take it.
Yeah, I don't know if even that would be, people often say that, well, that's like a natural reaction when you smell a dead body. But I don't know if it's a natural response. If you didn't know there was a dead body and you never smelled it before, if there would be a subconscious reaction to it, or if it would just... It's when you realize it's a dead body that you have that repulsion. Yeah. And also, back in those days, you had excrement in public latrines.
Good boy.
But also, people would just throw their chamber pots out into an open sewer out in the middle of the street.
That's insanity. I just can't believe they would do that.
I know.
I mean, they gotta know that that's not a good idea. Why were people doing that?
It was just the way they did it. You would think one of the first things you would figure out with civilization, it was like, okay, we got the four walls. Now let's figure out a way to get all this crap out of here without us having to smell it all the time.
God, it took the Romans. The Romans figured it out.
Right? But even in the Middle Ages, they went back. The Dark Ages, everybody went back to just throwing chamber pots out into the middle of the road.
God, they should have listened to the Romans.
And all the animals that you had pulling around carts and everything, they were all like crapping around.
Jesus. Yeah. I bet if we went back in time, it would just be like, oh my God, I can't imagine. I'd be a good time traveler because I don't have a good sense of smell.
Yeah.
I'd be one of the people.
We'd be like, instead of like Bill and Ted's Big Adventure, you and I would be like, we'd show up, take one whiff and be like, oh
no. Oh, no.
Let's go back.
Anybody who's ever been camping and used the camp out bathroom, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, just imagine if you want to get that sense, just go camping, go to the pit toilet, close the door, and stay in there for about an hour, and that will give you a
sleep in there. There you go. Jesus,
that's what our ancestors had to deal with.
God, that's horrid.
Yeah. Also, remember, there were no zoning laws at that time. So you had industries right next to all of the houses. So
God.
You would have tanneries that would use dung to tan leather.
They use dung? I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was one way to tan leather for...
Oh, my God. So somebody's job was to rub dung on animal... Oh my God. Yeah. Until what happened? Why that somehow made
something about the dung, a chemical in the dung made, maybe it was a practical joke that got out of hand. you told some guy to go rub this over, and he's like, did it for years.
Horrible. horrid. What was wrong with us?
Yeah. Laundries would use urine because of the ammonia.
Well, that makes sense. I do that. You want to save money on pods.
You just crawl up on your dryer, open the washer, and
it saves lots of money. It cleans the clothes. I lower water bills. Yeah, it's like the buffalo. We use everything over at my house.
just counting the savings. And then you had, like you said, the slaughterhouses were right in the same neighborhoods where everyone lived.
Oh, and now we know how those smell because you and I grew up in Kansas, and that is a rough smell.
Yeah.
And that's after the Jungle, the book. That's after they've gotten it cleaner and safer,
Yeah, this is the improved version.
Yeah, this is the modern way of murdering millions of animals.
There was also a profession called for a cesspool cleaner. So when they would throw all of this crap into a cesspool, there were people who would come around. Usually they try to make them come around late at night when everyone was asleep.
Nobody wants that disturbed. Oh, so let me get this straight. You got to get. I'm one of those guys. I have to go out and shovel shit in pitch black.
Yeah,
that's my job.
You'd have to put it into a wagon and then carry it outside of town and dump it out there.
Oh my God. Yeah. And it's dripping and sloshing and oh my God. It's just, and you're wearing hide, but the hide's been tanned with excrement. It's just,
it's awful, isn't it?
Awful.
The good old days. Yeah. There were like master cesspool cleaners, which means there must have been a union of it, and you had to work your way up to do, like, I don't want just anybody coming out here and cleaning that shit out of it.
You want that done right the first time. You don't want it. You don't want a problem. With that. Yeah, we learned that when I bought my house. We had the sewer backup, and lots of things you can wait on. But poo in your house, you can't. That's it was on Christmas Day. We had to get it dug out. Yeah, it was so expensive, but you can't. What are you going to do? Leave it? No.
So you had somebody. He had to he gets a call opening up gifts or something. Like, I gotta go.
Yep. They made a lot of money, but they had to work on Christmas, or was it Christmas Eve, or something like that.
Yeah.
Speaking of specialists, you were at one point a chimney sweep.
Yeah.
Very good chimney sweep.
There were, I would say this was a chimney sweep is like a few steps above, better than being a cesspool cleaner.
Oh, and hell yes.
But I'm just saying
I'm just saying it's an ancient, relatively old, and you need somebody to do it right,
Yeah. And I would say, too, they used to say that you could tell somebody's profession by how they smelled back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously, a cesspool cleaner, when they show up for parent-teacher conference or, invite your dad to work day.
Oh,
people probably,
people can smell the Hollywood on me. That's for sure.
Yeah. I smell complete bureaucrat. People see me and they're like, "Oh, man, where's the bureaucrat?" And they look around and see me.
I smell red tape.
Yeah. Slowing it down the line. But a chimney, the chimney sweep. I remember after I get off work, again, I'd be covered in filth, and there was no singing. It's not like Mary Poppins.
No dancing.
My brother and I weren't up on the roof dancing step in time or whatever it was. But yeah, the ash and that creosote smelled awful in there. Yeah. If you get it on you and you start sweating.
Well, you'd find animals and stuff up there too, right?
Yeah, dead birds would be up there. A lot of times, a few times, nothing interesting as far as money or
human heads, nothing like that.
People would hide things up on the smoke shelf back in the day. So you'd find old, I can't remember, nothing interesting. Nothing interesting. But,
I'm sorry.
Well, if I ever do it again, I'll know how to do it better.
I'm going to leave something on my smoke shelf.
Yeah. Then ask me over to clean it. One writer in the 1820s said that you could smell Paris before you actually got to Paris.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. So he said in Paris was supposed to be the most cosmopolitan city in the world at that time, arguably.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But he said it was just so awful, the smell. Before you saw any of the towers, before anything, you'd be like, oh, we're almost there. You know, I can smell it.
It's so funny because there is a smell that New York has. It's not an unpleasant smell, but it's a distinct smell.
Yeah, very unique. Most cities have it with the like garbage smell, with food.
People, just the humanity.
Yeah. And also in ancient Rome, they would do something. Romans liked really strong tasting foods with a lot of onion and garlic. And they also used a fish sauce, a fermented fish sauce.
Oh, here we go with the fish sauce. Yeah. I'm not a fan.
Really? I love fish sauce. But
you do? On what?
Yeah.
Like what? In what kind of meal do you like fish sauce?
Like with Vietnamese food.
Okay, I do
Chinese
love
food.
Maybe I'm eating more of it than I think.
Yeah, how much are you putting on there?
I don't know.
It's a condiment. You just you don't eat that full on.
I drink it like a shot.
We need to go out to eat sometime. I just want to see what you're doing. But the thing that they say is bad, what smells bad, is not so much that ancient Rome probably smelled. You had all these smells going on with garlic and onion.
Oh, and Caligula. Imagine that when he was around.
But they, the fermentation when you're making the garum is when it's supposed to smell really bad.
Okay. Because it's just dead fish that you're fermenting. You're fermenting fish.
Yeah.
God, that's gross.
But the Romans still worried about personal body odor and like bad breath after drink. You go spend the night drinking and vomiting all over the place.
Yeah, that's true. They would just upchuck whenever they were full. Didn't they use dogs as napkins? Like they'd have dogs under the table. I read that somewhere. I don't know. The dogs, they just wipe their hands on dogs.
You've told me that. I need to look that up because I don't know where you got that.
I don't know how that got in my head.
It's a striking image, though.
It almost is.
I don't know. To me, with we should maybe we could save some papers, save some trees by going back to wiping our hands on dogs.
God. Everybody's going to get poodles and things that don't shed.
Try not to get white. You want to go some dapple color.
You want a labradoodle. Another reason to get a labradoodle.
Come here.
Come here.
Let's see. The Romans also, they would remove their underarm hair because of the body odor. That was when
that helps.
How
does that
help? Have an experiment.
Yeah,
we can have a little.
I'm going to shave one. And do my own experiment.
Scientific method. I like it.
But I guess if you don't shower, I guess stuff will get caught there. Maybe. I don't know. That's weird.
Yeah. In religion, people felt that smell revealed the inner essence of a person. So that's why you would have a belief that good spirits smelled pleasantly, whereas evil spirits smelled bad. For example, you'd have the Bible and different things talk about the smell of sanctity, but you had the stench of the devil.
Yes.
The devil.
Well, and in Catholic incense, the use of incense. What's the thing they use in the Catholic Church? That ball that
censer or something.
Yeah, that thing is cool. I love that thing.
And some people have said, not only there was a belief at that time that your prayers went up with the smoke, but also some people say, well, maybe they did that because all the parishioners smelled so bad that they had to, the priest had to do something to be like, I can't be in there.
Yeah, we got to get this. We got to either shorten the mass or get more incense. Give me that ball. Fill it with incense.
You just run around, just shaking that thing. At
From now on, we have to do it every mass, especially the rows in the back.
And witches and lechers were also supposed to smell bad. So if you read about the history of witches or lechers, somehow lechers got in there too, that they smell bad.
Jesus.
The different classes were also defined by how they smelled. So the wealthy always thought that they smelled good.
Yeah. Well, they didn't do anything.
Yeah, and they wore perfume.
Yeah. You think of that like French nobleman, with all the lace and the powdered wig and face, all that crap.
Little handkerchief dipped in some sort of oil.
Yes, exactly.
And the poor were supposed to have obviously smell bad.
Yeah,
and it wasn't
work.
Yeah, just because not only because of that they actually did stink probably, but they were a lower status. So people would associate the smells with whatever smell it was, with the status of the person that was emanating that smell.
Yeah.
And
it's like driving cars today. You pull up in a 1981 Tercel. That's just the same thing as smelling bad, Okay. All these people leasing Teslas.
Yeah. I see where you're where you're going with that.
It's time for a revolution.
Prostitutes were also associated with bad smells. And
really?
Because of their status. Because of their status.
Okay. So people who, but isn't it? Yeah, it's if you think of a yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I'm with you.
Yeah, and for example, in Spanish, the word puta, or in French putain, which means whore. And excuse me for using. I hate using that word, but but those words puta and putain actually comes from the Latin word putrid, which was a reference to their smell.
Wow. Okay, man.
And it also goes for older people. Older people were also traditionally thought to smell bad.
Well, that's, as we get older, we have a unique smell. Let's put it that way. I mean, everyone knows that.
I even put on deodorant for this podcast today.
Did you? I went for a run and just put on a t-shirt.
Oh, no, really? Ugh.
Yeah, you wouldn't. Yeah.
Oh God, thank God.
I just pulled off a sweaty t-shirt and put on this one to make it look like I wasn't sweating. But yeah, no.
I was so self-conscious by this topic. I took a shower. I took a shower before we did this.
You live our work. You live it.
Yeah.
When you take on a topic, you dive in.
Experimental archaeology. I take 5 showers a day. Keep smelling good. The smell of death, which you mentioned before.
Yeah.
In ancient Greece and Rome and Egypt, they would wash and perfume the bodies before they buried them. And one of the reasons was, the smell that accompanies decomposition. And as the body decays, that's the person is actually losing their individuality or their physical individuality. And so the idea possibly could have been that by bathing them and keeping them smelling good was a way to prolong who they were before.
That's interesting. To give sort of a transition, a segue.
Right. And the other
before
thing
the inevitable
was to you wanted them to smell good when they finally reach the afterlife. You don't want to get to Hades or wherever you're going, and
if you're down there, it doesn't matter. It's going to be hot. But that seems crazy to me. If there's an afterlife, surely the ability to make us all smell okay seems possible.
Yeah. Okay. You would hope. I mean,
you don't need to take a shower down on Earth before.
I'm just going to do it before I go. I'm going to do it anyway, just to be
Listen,
safe.
if I have to pull the plug on you, I will instruct everyone to give you a good bath before we pull the plug.
And where's his Old Spice? He wants his Old Spice on.
Get him smelling good.
The early Christians, though, always thought that all those perfumes and stuff were a sign of Roman decadence.
Mm-hmm.
So the early Christians didn't like to bathe or perfume as much as the Romans. Set themselves apart.
Everybody's about setting themselves apart from each other.
Yeah. And without refrigeration, a lot of meat would like in your house, a lot of that meat would decay and start to rot and smell bad.
You ever dealt with any rotting meat, like really bad with maggots?
No.
Have you ever come across it? It is one of the worst. It is the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah. Not the smell, but even the maggots are
the maggots alone. It's just this is the second time we've talked about maggots.
Yeah.
All right.
But the maggots love it. They love it.
They love it. They love it.
They'll go crazy over it.
Just goes to show it's all cultural. It all depends on your point of view.
What they used to do back in the old days is they soak all that bad meat in vinegar and then cover it with spices so that you would you wouldn't throw it out because you had to eat.
Oh my God, you're kidding me.
No.
That must have made people sick.
Yeah.
Everybody was just queasy all the time, probably. You know what I mean? You're just always sort of nauseous.
Yeah.
What a way. No wonder the Dark Ages came on.
Just
everybody was just nauseous and uncomfortable, diarrhea.
Yeah. Smelling like vinegar and rotting meat.
Jesus.
And they say the Puritans also didn't like to use spices because they thought that was a sign of decadence. So
being a Puritan was rough.
Yeah, just imagine that first Thanksgiving in Plymouth and be like when the Puritans show up and be like, "Oh God."
Yeah, everybody's just like, "What? I'm eating cardboard."
This is
Where's
awful.
the salt? Everybody stops eating and looks at you.
Yeah. Decadent.
Did you say salt? Get him.
Also, back in the Middle Ages and actually up through the 1700s, the idea was that disease was carried through bad air. Mm-hmm. And that's where you get even the term malaria is actually saying bad air.
Bad, airy air. Even like in all those old in novels and stuff, they're always opening up the windows, to let it's always opening up the windows.
Yeah, get that bad air out of here.
Yeah.
I guess doctors would come in and smell the head of their patient to see what or come in and smell the patient to see.
Let me see. Come here. Yeah, you're all right. You're all right.
It's not much more different from what they do now. They just
get on
the
true.
iPod or iPad.
Did you just say iPod? Oh my God.
Sorry.
Nine Gen Zs just turned us off. I said iPod. Actually, they might be fascinated by our oldie tiny speak.
Someday I'll give a talk about the rotary phone.
That's great. I would love that.
Yeah. Let's see. But, some doctors even at that time thought that the smell of sewage could keep away the plague. So it was like,
oh no.
Yeah.
So what? That you would fill your house with sewage?
Well, you wouldn't try to clean up that open sewer. That may have been the reason why you were talking about why didn't they fix that? Maybe it was they thought that
feels like the thing like a black cat or walking under a ladder is bad luck. The reason that came about, in my opinion, is because it's dangerous, and so people said it's bad luck to walk under a ladder, so that people would get. So I feel like it's a similar sort of thinking with the sewage. It's like, look, we can't do anything about it. Let's make it into a good thing.
Yeah,
it wards off, whatever leprosy.
Yeah,
just
leave it out there. Yeah, I do. I think it is. Yeah.
Otherwise, you got to call that guy to clean the cesspool. It's
making you healthy. Look how good you look.
Yeah. It's a good thing.
And they also thought, people didn't like to bathe then because they thought that you're first of all, you didn't have access to water in the cities, but they thought that when you were wet after a bath, it made you more susceptible to the bad air. So when you get out of a bath.
That's absolutely true. Not just the bad air, bad anything. You ever lay down on anything will stick to you. They hadn't invented terry cloth yet.
Yeah. No towels. You just have some dirty water. Get out and put your clothes right back on.
You get dust stuck to you. It's like getting out of the ocean,
And they also thought that by taking a bath, you were like, if you got rid of your body odor, you were taking away your sexual vitality.
Maybe that's something I need to revisit.
So men at the time thought that kind of musky smell that they had or developed your own personal body odor was like an animal's musk. And it would attract.
That's like, we're getting into the pheromones, I'm guessing. But, that's
we're getting close.
That's like Aramis. You ever smell Aramis? Remember Aramis?
No.
It smelled like sweaty guys who don't bathe.
Really?
So weird. You'd take a bath and then you'd put cologne on that smelled like sweat.
Really?
The musk.
That's interesting that Aramis was also one of the musketeers, right? Wasn't he a Three Musketeers?
Oh, right. There we go. Boom. Thank you.
Done. Smell like an old French soldier. That's what when you go out for the night. But there was a time when all classes smelled bad, actually, and they report that Versailles, the Palace of Versailles, had a cesspool right next to the palace.
Oh my God! Oh.
Yeah.
What is a cesspool? It's just a big pond of poo that you just empty your stuff out in there.
So they would all of those people in Versailles would take all of their poo down near the palace.
God, Versailles is a big place. All those servants, all of them, hundreds of people.
Yeah. And so you think about when you see the movies now with like in Versailles and the King of France, and just imagine in reality it'd be like they'd be out there walking around and you just smell crap all over the gardens.
Oh my God, that just
There was a story.
Where we are.
There was a story I read where it probably a joke or satire or something, but some guy from the provinces came and stayed at Versailles. And then when he went home, he had all of his own servants pee around his house so that it would smell like the royal palace. So,
wow, it was that bad. Jesus.
Yeah. Just real quickly, it brings us to the scent of the other, which means that the idea that usually a predominant culture will say that other, less predominant or less dominant cultures smell differently or smell bad, which is what you were kind of talking about with the different spices. Usually it's from the food that people make.
Yeah. Because it's not something I'm used to, therefore it's bad.
Right. And it's always been it's been attributed in our country, it's been attributed to like Jewish people, also with Chinese people or African Americans. The predominant culture has always tried to say that they had a different smell or an unpleasant smell. And what's interesting about that is, Western Europeans, when they colonized other parts of the world, they were always surprised to find out that the indigenous populations thought that they smelled bad, that Western Europeans smell bad. And so I've read reports where it was kind of shocked to hear that what we smell bad as well.
Yeah, it's always the other. Well, like that Shogun. Remember that?
Yeah.
Remember that book Shogun? There's a big part of it because like the English weren't bathing at the time, and when he shows up, he shipwreck on Japan. That's the whole story, and all the Japanese are like, "Oh my God, we got to bathe him immediately." This guy's disgusting with
awful.
his long hair.
Yeah, he's been on a ship for 6 months or something. He's like, oh God.
Ooh, rats and
and then, like while people like Napoleon was supposed to use cologne every day, he was known for wearing cologne. But most men in the 17th,
I hate those guys. I hate those
Really?
guys who wear somebody. I feel like we've got to start telling people when they have too much cologne. Like we've got to make that socially acceptable to say, hey, ease up, man. That's intense.
Really?
I mean, yeah. If you're on a plane or something, and it's just so much.
Yeah, that's one of the things they talk about is your olfactory. The smell can invade somebody's personal space without you actually getting into their personal space.
That's right. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, just like if you scream, if you just came up and screamed at me, I would say you're hurting my ears.
Yeah.
Go scream in your own house.
How would you broach that with him?
I don't know.
Let's do a little role play.
I would never do it. I would never do it. With a screamer? I would take it. Or the smell. I wouldn't say anything. I don't say anything. I don't want any trouble from anybody. Not me. I find a nice excuse to go somewhere else.
Yeah, it's easy to say, like, oh, why don't we do that? But then you come in with somebody with a lot of cologne.
When I say, why don't we do that? I'm saying, why don't other people do that for me?
Interesting, in the Victorian era, people began to associate odor with being bad. So then for all of our existence, we live with this odor, we live with all this. But then in Victorian 1800s, we started to think that, hey, we shouldn't be smelling so bad. And in 1930, George Orwell actually wrote that the difference between the classes was that the lower class smelled. And he was meaning that as like, really, that's what comes down to, is that there's a visceral reaction to the manual laborers and people who work.
Interesting.
And again, it was because at that time, it was usually kind of the middle class or upper class that actually had access to plumbing.
Right.
Could,
right. And it's hard work. Makes sense. Jeez.
Yeah. And today, we're basically an odorless society. So like you don't want to have body odor.
Right.
But you also, like you're saying, you don't want to smell too much like cologne or perfume or something.
Yes, you're right. Everybody wants to be beige,
Yeah.
Let's beige it up. Don't too much, not too, just come and kind of ride right through. No troubles.
Get that sweet spot in between the two. And so kind of getting back to, we're going to get to what you were talking about, the pheromones. Our sense of smell has been called our most sexual sense.
Okay, here we go. I love it. You leave this to the end. It's good. Yeah. It's smart.
Yeah. And people have been trying to figure out, well, what is about the scent of attraction or whatever. And some of the research I read said that we have a set of genes that determine our immune system. And this set of genes is called the major histocompatibility complex, or MHC. So MHC is a set of genes that determines our immune system. Mm-hmm. And the genetic manifestation of the MHC is our immune system. And the physical manifestation of our MHC is our body odor.
What?
Yeah.
That is crazy.
Everyone has a unique sequence of genes that make up their own MHC, or their scent, their body odor.
Wow.
And it's kind of like an odor print or like a fingerprint, and it's unique to you. Now, if you're an identical twin, they say you'd have the same MHC smell as your identical twin. And in 1995, Klaus Wedekind, who's a zoologist, led a team of researchers, and they were trying to see like how, if women choose men based on their MHC, meaning based on their body odor. And what Wedekind found was that women in the study usually chose men to be more attractive who had the most different MHC and immune systems from their own.
So it's about being different. It's about being unique. They don't smell other people, and so they think you're special because you smell different to them, which is so weird because everything else that smells different to us we associate as bad.
Right.
But with this,
consciously or subconsciously, we're attracted to people who have a different immune system.
That makes sense, because if the idea is to spread the genes, right?
Yeah.
The idea, it's better to find people who are very different from you, right? It gives a better chance of the population surviving. So,
because
if they smell exactly like you, the chances are they're maybe more closely related to you or similar in some other way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
It's
Incredible.
Interesting because
you're
that
saying
means that
my wife chose me because I smell.
Well, you smell differently from her. So she found attractive. That's what she found attractive about it. Or maybe
we
she
all
was
kind of smell the same now, my whole family, because we use urine to wash our clothes. We all smell like my urine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what that was? I was wondering. I didn't want to say anything.
It's musk. Musk.
And so then to get down to pheromones, everyone talks about pheromones and trying to find pheromones and trying to find something that will make people uncontrollably attracted to you.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll see on the internet, they'll sell pheromones or, different things.
The modern Spanish fly.
Right. And one of the, example of that is androstenone, which is a pig pheromone, which pigs use to find a mate and know when a mate is ready to
Do people rub that on themselves?
No,
or what do they do with that?
That's an example of a pheromone.
Oh, okay. I see.
But, pheromones aren't processed with the olfactory system. So they're processed by another organ or another bundle of nerves that's called the vomeronasal organ, which is separate from the olfactory bulb.
Interesting.
So the vomeronasal organ actually detects large molecules. So when we talked about all those molecules that were coming through, it attracts large molecules. But unlike dogs and, other animals that use pheromones to communicate, humans lose their vomeronasal organ after birth. So we don't, as adults, we don't have a vomeronasal organ.
Interesting.
So this whole thing, it just means that we don't seem to have the ability to detect and respond to pheromones.
So it's all bull. It's all bull. It's all bullshit.
I don't know.
Wow. But if you do have the ability to detect pheromones, is that a sixth sense? Do our dogs have sixth senses?
Well, they have the vomeronasal organ.
Right.
It's only humans that don't have it.
I know. That's what I'm saying. So dogs can see, smell, taste, touch, and they can detect pheromones. Is that six?
Yeah.
Plus ESP, because my dog definitely can read my mind.
Yeah.
There's no question.
They know when it's walkies,
It's like, when he looks, and he'll look at me sometimes and look right through my soul. I'll be like, yes, you're right.
So just a few more things before we wrap up. You can't smell when you're asleep. They've done tests where they look at the brain scans of people when they're asleep, and they'll put smells up to their nose when they're sleeping.
Really?
Nothing. Yeah.
But what about if I cracked an ammonia tab under your nose? You wouldn't wake up?
It wouldn't be the same. You might wake up from me being right up next to you. When you wake up, you would smell it. But the actual
don't do it to me. I was talking about doing it to you. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
No, the experiment is all doing it to you.
Time to go camping. Try out all this stuff. But they think maybe it has something to do with the context of smell. Like you need to know that you're awake and you're aware of the context of smell in order to interpret that being a smell. And when you're asleep, that part of your system that determines the context is not active, and therefore you don't find smells.
That's amazing.
Or you don't do.
Yeah. But when I dream, I can smell sometimes. I feel like I can.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't dream that much.
That's like in your subconscious.
That's memory. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Also, in some parts of India, smelling the head is a traditional greeting, which I kind of like. Like. It's, and they talk about the Ramayana says, "I will smell thee on the head. That is the greatest sign of tender love."
I'm gonna smell your head next time I see you. I'm gonna adapt
to
that.
me, yeah, don't. It's so much better than shaking hands.
I
I'm gonna
agree.
start doing it at work.
Yeah, and it's intimate. I like it.
Go in for a job interview, just grab somebody's head and give a big sniff. In some traditional Arab cultures, also, after dinner, the hostess will pass around a perfume box. And each of the guests will take out some of the perfumes that are in there and put that on their hands and on their wrists, so that later, when they go home or go out afterwards, they'll still smell the pleasant smell of the dinner.
Oh, it's like an after. It's like a gift. It's like a party gift.
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
Isn't that nice?
That's a really good idea. I like that.
Yeah.
So you smell it, you're like, oh, the party. That was so nice.
Next time we have dinner, I'll pass around about you opened it up and it's Aramis.
That's fine.
I know you said you loved it so much. Enjoy. It'd be like Aramis and some Axe body spray in there. All right, John. I think
wonderful. You've taken me on another magic carpet ride into what it means to be human, and I just can't thank you enough.
No,
this is go ahead.
No, I was going to say just a little homework for people. Just be sure to pay attention to the smells. Just be conscious of how it makes you feel, what the smell of a room is like.
Stop and smell the roses is what you're saying.
Yeah.
For real. Like, not metaphorically. We want you to stop and smell it.
Get down there.
Well, that's great advice. This is human number 2.
And this is human number 1. I just want to thank everyone for joining us. And also just to say, if you have any ideas or any questions or topics that you feel humanity should know about and we should address, always feel free to reach out to us, and we will try to get to those questions. Until then, John, thanks for everything.
Same here. This was great.
And we will talk to everyone later. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.